Hello. We have researched the influence of outer rise faults on sediment flux, décollement heterogeneity, and slip mode at the Japan Trench in a region where shallow seismogenic and tsunamigenic slip to the trench is known to occur. Our study area is located in the outermost portion of the Japan Trench, offshore of northern Honshu, in an area where the JAMSTEC agency has collected numerous high-resolution multi-channel seismic reflection profile data. Our study area overlaps with the northern portion of the shallow portion of the 2011 Tohoku slip patch and with a portion of the 1896 Sanriku rupture patch. Our methods include mapping seismic units on the incoming plate and the overriding plate, and measuring fault offset of the outer rise faults on the incoming plate. We identify four major styles of prism deformation and décollement structure. In the first example on the upper left, the décollement is localized near the base of the incoming sediment section, here noted in blue, where there is a series of imbricate thrust faults that nearly completely accrete the incoming sediment section. And the décollement is localized near the base of this section in a portion of the sediment section that has frictionally weak smectite-rich clays. In another end member, the décollement can step down into the graben and back up over horse and will partially accrete the uppermost portion of these incoming sediments and subduct the lower portion. In a third end member, there's nearly complete subduction of the incoming sediment section underneath the frontal prism here in gray. And in the last end member, there's essentially no sediment accretion, but instead the décollement is planar and cuts across deep subducted graben, allowing for the subduction and potential frontal tectonic erosion of frontal prism materials. Importantly, we notice significant structural variability, both down dip and a long dip or a long strike in the Japan margin on length scales of 5 to 10 kilometers. And this pane is an example of how the décollement and frontal prism structure can vary down dip. On the left here is an example of a section where there is nearly complete sediment accretion, where the décollement is localized near the base of the section along its entire length, allowing for sediment accretion. Whereas on the right, there are two examples of locations where the décollement can change its geometry from planar to non-planar, and where there's combinations of sediment accretion, sediment subduction, and potential tectonic erosion along different portions of the seismic line. We also note significant structural variability along strike. These here are three maps showing three different data sets of the same portion of the margin mapped from the seismic reflection data. On the left panel are colored dots indicating the thickness of sediments, where reds and oranges are thin and blues are thick. And we find the thinnest sediments on the order of 50 to 100 meters located in a patch where there are petite spot volcanism on the incoming plate, here in yellow triangles, and thicker sediments in blue and greens located away from this petite spot volcanism. We also find significant variations in fault throw along the strike of the margin, where the purples and reds indicate faults with the highest magnitude of throw, and greens and blues indicate faults with lower magnitudes of throw. And again, we find that the highest fault throw seem to be associated with regions of petite spot volcanism. Finally, if we map the modes of frontal prism deformation and the décollement structure, we find that there is variation between nearly complete sediment accretion in blue to partial sediment accretion and sediment subduction in green, to locations where there's a tectonic erosion in subducted graben in red. All of these parameters are varying over very short spatial scales. Importantly, we find that there seems to be a genetic link between sediment flux and décollement structure that is linked to the ratio of sediment thickness to fault throw. That is, in regions where the sediment thickness is greater than local fault throw, regions here in blues and purples are regions that experience predominantly sediment accretion, whereas regions that have larger fault throw than sediment thickness, such as here and here, experience predominantly sediment subduction and potential tectonic erosion. We find that these modes vary over relatively short spatial scales, but that in some, there is more tectonic accretion than there is sediment subduction and tectonic erosion. These modes have significant implications for the geometry and mechanics of the décollement and how that can vary along the shallow portion of the subduction interface. This has led us to come up with two end-member tectonic models for the evolution of the décollement and frontal prism. In one end member, the décollement can undulate and step down into graben and up over horsts, allowing for the near complete accretion of the incoming sediment plate. This allows the décollement to remain in a relatively homogeneous layer, this smectite rich, frictionally weak clay layer near the base of the incoming plate. So it's compositionally homogeneous, but it has a geometric heterogeneity in that there are small undulations in the geometry of the décollement. We find that seismic lines with this end member geometry and evolution appear most predominantly in the southern portion of our field area, the portion that hosted shallow seismogenic slip during the 2011 Tohoku rupture. In contrast, in our opposite end member includes a décollement that is relatively planar and can cut across subducted graben and allows for the subduction of sediments in the frontal portion of the prism. And so this allows the décollement to be geometrically planar and so geometrically homogeneous, but it is compositionally heterogeneous as it can vary its localization from these portions here that are likely located in frictionally weak clays versus these portions here, which are likely located in more biogenic muds of the frontal prism, which are frictionally stronger than these basal clays. And so this can induce small spatial scales of frictional and compositional heterogeneity on the décollement. And this end member model we find exists more frequently in the northern portion of the study area outside of the region that slipped to the trench in the 2011 Tohoku rupture, but in the area that is thought to be able to host shallow tsunami earthquakes such as the 1896 Sanriku event. Thank you.